My fiancée asked me to choose between her and my mom, and I chose my mom. My mom turned 60 this year, and she is not going to live 5 years longer. 12 years ago, she had a stroke that left her half-side paralyzed. She still lives alone and takes care of herself completely by herself. She is very resilient, and I'm incredibly proud for her. But I know that her chances of living for another 5 years are very low. My fiancée got, surprisingly, a promotion in the dream job she always wanted. Saying it's a gigantic opportunity would be saying that a Ferrari is just a car. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance. It will change her life forever. It will fulfill everything she wanted. It will make her rich. It also involves her moving countries, thousands of kilometers away. There is no way she won't accept it, and I wouldn't want her to. The moment she told me about it, I knew it was over. She asked me to come with her. I didn't even need to think about it and said no. It broke me apart, and it broke her apart. And I feel nothing and simultaneously just pain. My mother has 5 years left, at best, then she will die, and just never be in my life again, for the rest of my existence until oblivion also swallows me up. I will never get to meet her again, hear her living voice again. She will be gone forever, just gone. The clock is ticking for her, every day a bit louder, and I simply cannot move away from her and see her only once a year anymore. How could I accept that only seeing her 5 times before she stopped existing? I cannot. Period. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but it wasn't a hard choice at all. I want to stab myself. Story 2. My brother died in 2020, and I'm the only one who knows the truth. My brother died in a car accident in 2020. My family thinks he died on impact. I'm the only one who has spoken with the medical examiner and read the report. My parents never wanted to. They were okay with me doing it and relaying the info to them. The truth is, there was a fire, and he burned alive. My parents know about the fire BC. We weren't allowed to view him after he died, but I told them he died instantly from blunt force trauma, and the fire just happened afterwards. Not true. He was alive, and he burned. That's what was in the report. He also had a BAC of over 3x the legal limit, and meth in his system as well. My brother struggled with substance abuse issues the last decade of his life. I knew about his issue with alcohol, but was truly shocked and left speechless about the drugs. This was a part of the report which I told my parents came back clean. We were all under the impression that he'd been sober for almost that last year of his life, so it would have been too much to tell them otherwise. My brother wasn't a bad person. He had a struggle that he couldn't overcome. He did something really stupid, and I thank God all the time he at least didn't hurt anyone else. And it's not like he got away with it. He paid for it with his life and in a pretty horrific way. The burden of being the only one who knows all of this is killing me. To know my brother died alone, and in so much pain, haunts me daily. But I have no one to vent to. And to know that he was using meth, he must have been so depressed and in a bad place mentally, which is also hard for me to think about, that he died sad and struggling. I won't ever tell my parents because they won't be able to bear it. They already struggle enough with just thinking his death was instant. And I also don't want to tell any friends because honestly, I don't want anyone to judge him for what he did. I know it was bad. I often struggle with feeling angry with him. I just can't handle hearing that type of stuff when it'll do no good. He's gone, and the only person it will upset is me. I guess I just finally wanted to admit it somewhere before I lose my mind. Story 3. We put our severely autistic child in an institution. 2 years ago, we made the decision to put our 18-year-old severely autistic, nonverbal child in an institution. I can honestly say it's probably the best thing to ever happen to the family. I was a stay-at-home parent while my spouse worked 10, 12-hour days to keep a roof over our heads, a food of the table. Living with our child was mostly hell. From the moment they woke up, if they even slept that night, there was never ever a moment of peace. Never a quiet, easy day. Nothing made them happy. Nothing. They were physically abusive towards us and themselves every day. Throwing anything and everything, banging/kicking anything. They would shut the door to their room, lay on the floor in front of it, and just kick it for hours and hours and hours. Think running on the door. Sometimes I still feel the way it would vibrate the whole house. Walls would have holes in them, windows broken. They broke 5. Doors would need replaced yearly. If you weren't paying attention to them, you'd get your hair pulled hard, sometimes drugged to the floor or slapped. One time we all shaved our heads so they wouldn't have anything to grab. And oh boy, did that make them more angry. You ever seen a grown 16-year-old have a total meltdown because they couldn't pull your hair? Communication was always a problem, they just refused to learn anything. Not for lack of trying on our end either. The only sign language they took any interest in learning was food. So when you would ask them a question like, do you have to use the restroom? They are still in diapers. Or, do you need help? They would just sign food. And if you got it wrong, which was all the time, they'd get angry and have a meltdown. The tablet was never an option. It was always just something to throw. They went to school every day with normal school hours until they were 15. Then it got switched to Tuesday and Thursday until they were 17. They became too much for that staff to handle. It was really just something to give us some time to breathe, to try and get some things done, but it was never enough. I know those poor teachers were afraid of them, and don't blame them. It was the only break we ever got, and we desperately needed it. My favorite time of day was putting them on that school bus in the morning. Then every time I would dread seeing that bus come back up our road in the afternoon. Sometimes I don't think they were happy to see me either. My other older kids were always stressed and worn down. Heads always on a swivel. It made me feel like a shitty parent. I made sure they all got their driver's license as soon as possible so they could escape. Then I found myself becoming increasingly jealous of them because they could leave. I wanted to leave with them every day. Anything was better than being home with them. When COVID hit, that's when things really started to take a turn for the worse. We were all stuck in the house with them. We all felt like prisoners in our own home. It was so stressful, clumps of my own hair were falling out. The abuse got worse, and my house was literally falling apart. I had a nervous breakdown and was sent to the hospital for a week. I didn't want to leave. I didn't want to go back home. My other kids stayed at my parents' house while I was there, leaving my spouse to go it alone. It was an eye-opener for them. I never really told them how bad it was when they weren't there. So after my stay in the hospital, we made phone calls, and they were placed in an institution a month later, where they are thriving. They have 6 people that supervise them constantly, that are just employed for them. Their meds are finally balanced right. They maybe have 1 issue a week. When we visit, they are excited to see us, as we them. We take them out to eat, and to parks. They have an excellent life of their own. Communication is still a little iffy, but I believe progress is being made because of those wonderful people. The day we took them to the institution, I remember feeling awful for not being upset, for not crying. All I remember feeling was relief and excitement. It took us months to feel some kind of normal, like we forgot how to be human. We got so used to being a doormat all the time, we didn't know what to do with ourselves. My older kids started staying home more. I got a part-time job just to get me out of the house a couple days a week. It's nice. So do I have regrets? Yes. Is one of those regrets putting them in an institution? No. My older kids, my spouse, and I are finally able to breathe.